Welcome to the Kellfire Show, and today I am excited to have Blythe Alpern as our guest today. I'm really excited because she's Gen X, and I can't wait to get her take on this lovely world of perimenopause, menopause. But Blythe is the founder of Wordwoman Creative, which is an ad agency that she helps beauty and lifestyle brands grow. And I know this was a dream project of yours, and we'll get into that shortly, that you had since you were 17. She's also the host of the Gen X Experience, a podcast dedicated to navigating midlife as a Gen Xer. And this has got to be a must listen to in the car. If you're a Gen Xer, you got to listen to this. At almost 51, she's navigating midlife as a strong, independent, single woman. Though it's not always easy, and it never is, thanks to perimenopause, she's still focusing on creating a life that lights her up. She absolutely does not care what the world thinks that she should be doing as a midlife woman, and I applaud that. And the only person that she needs to impress or satisfy or make her happy is herself. So welcome, Blythe. I'm so excited to chat with you today and kind of get your take on this wild journey we are all on.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me. Yes, it's a wild journey being a Gen X woman. It's a wild journey being a woman at all, really, in this world. And
that.
Yeah. And it takes a while, I think, to get to the point where you're like, yeah, this is about me. I'm not here to make everybody else happy. I'm not here for the male gaze. I'm here to do what I want to do. And that doesn't mean it's easy, but, trudge ahead the best we can with some medication if you're perimenopausal, with some very good medication that hopefully works.
So do you find it, I find it that once we've reached this midlife, that letting go and saying, I don't necessarily care anymore. I need to make myself a priority. Not to say that you don't care about the things you love in life, but that you are finally making yourself a priority and you give yourself permission not to feel bad about that. Isn't that the most, at least for me, the most freeing feeling? I don't know why we weren't doing this before, or at least bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, it is so freeing. I think for me, I feel like I didn't know this in my 20s and 30s because a lot of my focus was like, okay, I got to get a job. I got to establish my career, but I also want to get married and have, kids. And so that was my focus. And I kind of forgot about myself. And, if I could say anything to the younger generations, like, make yourself a priority. It's not selfish. It's necessary. And it will make you a better, stronger person. So you can, live out whatever career life that you want to. And if you want to get married, great. And if you don't, that's fine too.
Absolutely. I always say when we get into talks about relationships and things like that, the most important and your absolute first love should be yourself. Because if you can't learn to love yourself, fall in love with the coolness, the badassness that you are, you're not really going to be able to do that effectively in any other relationship. So the fact that it seems like you have fallen in love with the badass that you are really makes my heart huge for that. So tell us a little about how you got to where you are now. Give us a little backstory.
So I grew up in a very small town, but I always had very big ambitions. And I was always very creative and did a lot of writing. And my business is called Wordwoman Creative. It's inspired by my dad because he was an orthodontist, but he did a lot of research and writing. And whenever he needed writing help, he'd be like, I need Wordwoman. And so I've lost both my parents, but to honor them, that's kind of why I named my little one-woman shop after that. And I literally have in my senior memory book, it says, I will own my own agency one day. Sometimes I'd like to go back to that 17-year-old and be like, you don't want to go into advertising. Please go do something else, because it's not, I love being creative, but it's a really hard business, and it's just getting harder and harder, unfortunately, for really everybody, especially our age. Ageism in the creative fields is at an all-time high.
So from that point, I imagine, because you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business, that as I do, that it's a 24/7 job and there's little time for yourself. So how do you carve that out?
So I've made it kind of my mission, part of my business, because I do have a business, and then the podcast is like, I only do meetings on certain days. I try to close my computer down. I have a dog. He's not here today. He's at his like retrial of doggy daycare. And so he'll let me know when he has to go outside. So it forces me to go outside and take breaks. And working out is important to me for like my body and my mental health. So, and I try not to work on the weekends if I don't have to. Because yeah, as you said, as an entrepreneur, you're always on. And if you don't set boundaries for yourself, for your clients, you will never stop working and you'll burn yourself out. And I don't want to get to that place.
No. And as a Gen Xer, as a fellow Gen Xer, I feel like our generation of women I think we're like the first generation of women that were balancing both marriages, children, or if you didn't have children, pets, that's a big thing, and careers. We were balancing so much, and we were just little soldiers, just going in there, getting it done, and not really heads down, grind away, and not care necessarily about ourselves. At the same time, we were also brought up in this era where our parents also, they just kicked you out and didn't care. So we taught ourselves to be very resilient, and I think that that's reflected now in this generation of women, which I don't know if you're seeing this among friends or yourself, that we're a little bit stubborn when it comes to this whole menopause transition in life, because we think we've got this, we can handle it, we're the best ones for the job, we don't need to speak up. That's how we were raised. Do you feel that same sense?
I think that's how it started. I do see there a lot more conversations, because I think that while, as Gen Xers, we were raised, children are to be seen and not heard, and just, even though our mothers were like, okay, get a job, you can have this life, it still was very hard as a woman. And we're really bad about asking for help. Like you said, we'll just put our head down and deal with it or figure it out. But I think that once we started going into perimenopause and we're like, oh, this is no joke. There's so many symptoms. It's so awful. And you just start to feel like you're losing control of your mind, of your body, just your whole self. And I think at some point we're like, no, we're not doing this. We're not going to put up with this. Like, we are not going to be like the slackers of perimenopause. We're going to speak out.
We're going to be the best at it.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to crush menopause. That's how we are. Hold on. Give me my fringe purse from the flea market and my fringe Bon Jovi boots, and give you some hairspray, and I'm going to take this on.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it took me 4 doctors before I could get someone to help me. And I was just like, I'm not, because I felt terrible. And I was like, I'm not going to just let them decide that I'm just going to have to deal with this. I was just like, absolutely not. Part of it was because when I was in my 20s and 30s, I suffered from really, really debilitating depression. And part of my perimenopausal symptoms, I was starting to feel that. And I'm like, oh, we're not going back there. And I knew it wasn't normal. Because I could feel it would come, it would go, it would come, it would go. And I was like, no, we're going to find someone who's going to help me and listen to me and not gaslight me. And thankfully, I did find someone.
I had a guest on early when the podcast first started recording, and she was late 30s, but the whole conversation we had was anxiety and depression from her 20s and early 30s, that she had, she'd done quite a few things to figure out what was best for her. Once she did, and everything seemed to be copacetic, then her hormones started to go wackadoo, and very early perimenopause. And she said the same thing. She said it brought everything back to the forefront and even exacerbated it. And everyone told her, you're crazy, take this. You're crazy, do this or that. But I have heard that. It's amazing how little attention is given to that part of it. We know hot flashes. We're good with that,
Right.
and night sweats and things of that nature. But the overall how we feel is, our mental health is not addressed loud enough, in my opinion.
No, and of course, as Gen Xers, right? Like we didn't really talk about mental health. It was kind
No.
of this shameful thing, and if you had depression or whatever it was, that was like a character flaw, as opposed to something happened in your life or you had a chemical imbalance or whatever it is. And as women, you can start perimenopause as early as 35.
Yep.
And every single woman is going to go through, menopause. Maybe they will have symptoms, maybe they won't, but it's like we're half of the population. I think it's time that people cared that
Oh,
we're suffering.
absolutely. And it's starting earlier now. They're starting to say that because they're having, women are having babies later, into the mid 30s, the symptoms, it's really just a change. So it's just the way our hormones work, and it's the transition. But pregnancy is masking the beginning of those changes. Regardless, we're going to go through it, most people, for a good 10, maybe even 15 years before menopause hits. That's a huge chunk of our lives.
Yeah.
Women spend 87% of their lives in a transition hormonally. I mean, that's insane. But our mothers and grandmothers never talked about that to us. I think the last conversation I had with my mom on, being a woman and growing up was, babies. And that was it. No more conversation about that.
Yeah, I mean, my mom, I think I was in the 8th grade when she had to have a hysterectomy. And I remember like the issues she had. And then later, because, I think she was on hormone replacement therapy, but then that terrible study came out and then she
Right.
had to get off of it. And I did see her suffer and she didn't want to talk about it. And a couple times, like, Mom, I'm like, no offense, but you're not a very nice person right now. And you're suffering. And I'm like, why? There has to be something you can do, because it was just hard, like watching her. She was so strong, maybe a little bit too, like that was how we were raised. Like they were
Right.
strong, so were we. But sometimes it's okay to be like, hey, raise your hand and be like, this is not okay and I need help. And whatever the situation may be, whether it's perimenopause or, a lot of us too now are taking care of aging parents and raising kids.
Exactly.
Like sometimes you do have to be like, this is not something I can do by myself.
What's the biggest curveball that you've had through perimenopause, through this whole hormonal transition?
It
You
was
didn't see
probably
it coming.
all the different symptoms. Like there's I have itchy ear. Like my right ear sometimes will itch so badly and it's just it just drives me crazy. Or like when I'm working out and my nose will just start running. I'm like, what is, because like we
Yep.
always thought it was just hot flashes, night sweats, dry down there, and like then you stopped having your period. But there are so many symptoms that and you'll have something happen, you're like, is this a symptom or is this just because I'm getting older? Like it's just very confusing and
It
frustrating.
is. I think it's like one of those things where I wake up every day and I'm like, what fresh hell is this today? And why is this happening to me? Things like, so I was always a hairband girl. Obviously, my bangs were way up here then, but, we've learned to not do that anymore. But my hair, I've always had it long. And all of a sudden, like, this was all one length. And now I have these little baby bangs. Things like that were happening. The texture, like, no, just frizzy and thinning out. And I just thought, oh, it's because I've got, because I highlight my hair, or, it's that time of it's shedding season, or things like that. And then I was like, no, this is not going back to the way it used to be. So that was one that I think there's a lot, there's certain things that hit women individualistically that affect them. Like your hair is part of who you are, what you look like. And for me, it was always my thing. The hair, the back pain. I've never had back pain in my life, and I didn't have an injury, so I didn't know what was this. But come to find out that low back pain, joint pain in general, is a big symptom of perimenopause. It's because of our estrogen and our hormones. I I just I praise all women that are going through this phase in life. I really give it up to the Gen Xers though, because we're doing it so silently. But yes, you're right. We're starting to talk about it now because we're a badass group of women, and that's what we do. But well, tell us a little bit more about this journey that you're on. So you start Wordwoman Creative. You're a single woman. How are you dealing with that and dealing with all your symptoms? Do you find yourself like, do you try to stay social and out there, or you find yourself becoming more introverted or isolated?
I moved to Atlanta in 2019. That's where I live now. And I was like all excited. I'm like, because I had been taking care of my parents previous to that. So like my social life, I couldn't deal. And I was like, I'm going to do all these things. And then COVID hit. I'm like, well, there goes my social life. So, and that's when I started my business, but I would do stuff online. And I did notice like that over time, as the perimenopause kind of like got worse, and I started to really notice it, that I have moments where I'm like so antisocial. But I would tell my friends, I'm like, I'm going through an antisocial phase. I'm like, it's nothing against you. Mm-hmm. I just don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to be around people. And I'm also an introvert, so sometimes like I do need a break.
Right.
And I was dating for a while, and the last guy I dated, when I was really trying to figure out what was going on, just didn't care. And I was like, okay, we're not doing this, because I don't expect you to understand. But if you're not going to like be there for me and
right,
not just check out the relationship, yeah, we're done. And so I ended up breaking up with him. And then after that, I just kind of was like, you know what? I'm just happy being single. And not that I'm opposed to meeting someone, but it's not a focus. I'm happy with my dog, and my sister lives here. And so I get to see my niece and nephew, and I have a few friends, and sometimes I'm social, and sometimes I'm happy just being at home and reading a good book, or, binge watching something stupid on TV.
Well, the new buzzword that came out in the last couple of weeks is menodivorce. And they're talking about the statistics of women that, and for two reasons. One, whether the symptoms of perimenopause or menopause have affected them so drastically that either, their spouse has left or they've left. The world is just a dark place at that point, and they just need to be alone. Or the other flip side to that is that there is a growing number of women who are at this, I don't give an F stage anymore, and I'm tired of taking care of everybody else, and I want my own little world where my couch looks beautiful and I have flowers everywhere and nobody's screwing it up, and I can watch what I want and do what I want to do whenever I want. And that's becoming really big. More women divorce at this age range than they do in any other age range. So that's saying something. And I would probably lean into the number of women that said, okay, the kids are out of the house, or my career's gotten to where it needs to be, and it's time for me.
Yep.
And they probably have someone that's similar to like your ex-boyfriend that just didn't quite want to give grace in that area for women.
Yeah, and it's hard. And I have seen a few men occasionally talking on, social media about dealing with their wives, and like trying to explain to men, like, this is a really hard time for, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever, and you need to be understanding and try not to anger her because she doesn't have control over her emotions. Right. And try to be understanding, because she doesn't understand. Like, we don't understand what's going on with our body, because one minute, like last week, I was totally fine. And then I don't know what it was, but I was joking, like, my perimenopause rage is at 11. Like, I feel like I was going to explode, and it's like a physical feeling, and I'm not an angry like right person. Here. Yeah, I was like, it's boiling. I feel like a boiling pot. So sometimes, even if you are on supplements and medication or whatever you're doing, sometimes just a little shift or whatever, and you do have to be understanding, because we're going through it. We're not thrilled about it. We're doing the best we can. And if you don't understand us, like, I don't blame women for wanting to be by themselves or, choose a different path.
Well, have you ever done the, for me, it'll be driving down the road. But you're somewhere, you're driving down the road, you're standing in your home, you're watching a TV show that's a comedy, and the tears, they're just flowing, and you're like, I don't know what's wrong. And then and I can't even explain it to anyone that doesn't live through this, but it completely overtakes you.
Yeah.
and you have no idea where it came from, or what, Prince is on the radio singing Little Red Corvette, and all of a sudden you're in tears and you don't know why.
Oh yeah. My gynecologist, I love her so much. Like when I first was telling her what's going on, she's like, she drew me a little picture. She's like, so you're on a roller coaster with your emotions and the way you're feeling. And I'm like, that is the best way to describe it. Because yeah, one minute you're like, why am I crying over an ad or this show that I've seen before? And then 2 minutes later, well, especially in Atlanta driving here, my rage and my anxiety.
Oh, well, that's insane.
Yeah.
I lived in Atlanta for 5 years. I don't even know how you're doing it right now.
So, which makes me not want to go out. But you're like, why do I feel this way? Nothing can happen. And you just wake up and you're like, oh, I'm mad, or, oh, I'm sad, or, or I just feel numb, or whatever, whatever your hormones decide today is what you're going to deal with.
Well, it sounds like you have a good OBGYN. So I feel like you're a very lucky woman to have found someone that works well for you. That's not generally the case that I've heard, but for the women that do find someone, I applaud those doctors for sticking in there, learning what they can. To be fair, physicians, we go through medical school and menopause was never a priority. And it almost was treated as a condition or just something you need to deal with and let's not talk about. So that's to be fair to the physicians. Now there's so much out there that they can do add-on certifications or, extra education and that stuff. So to hear that there are some really good ones out there, that's awesome. And it's very encouraging. Did it take you a while to find her?
It did. I went to 3 other doctors before that, and they'd be like, you have PMDD. And I'm like, I'm in my late 40s. What are you talking about?
No.
I'm like, this is no. And it was just really or like, oh, we'll give you an SSRI. And I'm like, yeah, I've been on those, and the cure, the side effects are worse than the cure. And, yeah, and it's one thing I say to women, like, don't let a doctor gaslight you or tell you, oh, it's just aging, oh, it's just normal. No, you don't need to be on this. We have to advocate for ourselves. And while Gen X is really bad about, asking for help, we do not have a problem. Like, if you poke the bear, we're it's on. So maybe just bring a little bit of that Gen X attitude to your appointments and be like, I'm going to find someone that's going to help me, because nobody should have to suffer. Not to mention like the symptoms, but like we become more at risk for, heart disease and dementia and cancers. And I want to be here as long as I possibly can. And I don't want to put myself more at risk. I'm already at risk anyways with, like, my mom died of colon cancer. Her mom died of colon cancer. It's very prevalent in my family. So anything I can do to reduce my risk, I'm going to do it. If that means taking a bunch of medication and having 3 bottles of pills and an arthritis cream by my bedside table, then that's what we're doing.
Yeah, there's no reason for any shame. I always say that to everyone. Like, do your research, find what works best for you, or what group of things work best for you in conjunction, discuss with your physician, and there's zero shame in any of it. Because chances are the woman your age sitting next to you is doing the same thing or more. And she doesn't want to talk about it either.
Yep.
But the more we talk about it, the more tips and tricks you can pick up that, are non-medical that can help. But we need to create more of a sisterhood than suffering quietly in the shadows.
Yes.
It's definitely how I feel. So you particularly have basically ditched what the world thinks of a midlife woman. You've powered through on your own terms. What's like one bold decision you made that said, I'm redefining my happiness as a midlife woman. This is who I am.
I think it was when I stopped centering like my life around, or part of my life around, finding a man. I was like, why am I doing this? It's not bringing me joy. The apps are terrible. I don't want to be someone's mom or therapist. And if you're not going to bring it, like, I want a partner, not a child to raise. And also because I lost my parents and spent 5 years of my life, taking care of them and watching 2 people that I love the most pass away. I'm like, I'm not doing this nonsense, and when I let go of like the dream of, having the perfect man, not that there's any such thing, but having someone, I just felt so much better. And, it doesn't mean if I'm out in somewhere and I meet someone, I'm going to be like, absolutely not, get away from me. But I just don't have time for your nonsense because I'm running a business. I'm trying to have a great life, and I have a dog that I love, and I have friends, and I would just rather make myself happy and be around people that I care about, that care about me, than someone who's just gonna make me want to, lose my head to explode. I just don't want to do that.
You know what just went through my brain? Honestly, what went through my brain was like, we're going to find out she's getting engaged in like 2 weeks. It's an elopement. It's like coming out of the blue. She doesn't even know about it. She'll be like, oh, remember what I said? Yeah, so I'm retracting. I'm heading to Hawaii. I'm eloping. But that, because you just put it in the universe.
I mean, I would, again, like, sometimes I have this picture in my head that I'll be like 70 and then I'll have a man because I just want someone to hold my hand when I go to the doctor. But, yeah, I mean, again, if somebody walked into my life and they're the right person, great. But I'm not getting back on the apps because they're soul crushing. It doesn't matter what age you are, because you hear women, Gen Z, millennials talking about how horrible it is out there and the nonsense they're putting up with. And I think women as a whole are like, we're done making you the center of our universe and just dealing with it because you think you're the man and we're the woman. And, men don't like it, but maybe they should listen because if you're unhappy. Yeah.
They should get the hint that like, hey, that's what works in your 20s doesn't work in your 50s. Not when you're trying to attract the opposite sex. It just, no.
Nope. And if you can learn that lesson in your 20s of like what you really want, then you don't have to get to you'll already be there when you get to your 50s instead of waiting to your 50s going, wait a second, what am I doing?
All right. What was the last concert you've been to?
Gosh, I went to see Brandi Carlile a few years ago.
Oh, throwback.
It was fine. My friend is from Maryland, and she was like, Brandi Carlile is going to be in my home, like near my hometown. I'm like, okay, I'm going with you. So we drove up there, and it was fun. I'd like to go to more concerts, but also at my age, I'm like, I need a seat. It cannot be hot. Like, you need to start at like 30 minutes. Fine. If you're taking 2 hours to start the concert, we have a problem. So.
Oh, I'm the same way. I'm like, I can't be in GA if there's no seats. I need to have a seat, preferably, at a balcony, sort of away or rail, not near the young ones. Also with a cocktail waitress. It'd be really nice at this age in my life. And it's a little loud sometimes. And really, if they could start at 6 would be fantastic and wrap it up by 9. I'd really love it. But I took some time off for going to concerts, and when I went, I just saw Marilyn Manson. I saw at the House of Blues. I saw Marilyn Manson 1997 in Atlanta at the Tabernacle, and I swore I would see him again. Now, first of all, it's the best scene ever. It is 50, there's some youngins there that are like, oh, the old is new is trendy. Mostly it's our age group. And everybody's not really walking upright. We're sort of leaning. We're still trying to wear the same clothes, though. We've got the biker look going. We've got the goth look going, but we're 50-something. It is hysterical. And just watching that whole scene move around, and the mosh pit, while it was pretty active, it was the young ones, because you can see all the 50-year-olds are all standing back in seats and stuff, just like, this is excellent, great, but I can't do what I used to do before. Yeah. And I also didn't know if Marilyn Manson would be able to get through a concert. I was like, this man is in his late 50s. How is he going to pull this off? But to his credit, he was up there dancing. I'm like, you're mixing it up. There's hope for us yet. Yes. But if they're going to take 2 hours between setup, no, I'm sorry, no.
And also the prices are insane. Like I love Depeche Mode, and I've seen them twice. I love
Depeche Mode.
They're love that, and I wanted to see them again. And they came here, and I'm like, I'm not paying that price for like not great seats, and because then you're like, well, back in my day, like. When we were
back in my day, they were a nickel.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like, I remember going to see Prince when he was the artist formerly known as, when I was living in Miami, and my friend and I they were like, we're on the phone getting these tickets, and like, well, you could upgrade to the Purple Circle for like $80 total, and we're like, yes. Now that would be like regular seats, so it's a little frustrating because,
Yeah. Oh, I went to, on my bucket list, I'm a big Stevie Nicks fan and Fleetwood Mac. And on my bucket list was always to see them. But every time they'd come by, or when she would come by, it was pretty expensive. And then I just watched Daisy Jones and the Six, and so I actually have an acoustic guitar in my Amazon cart and a tambourine, neither of which I know how to play, but I think this is my time to be a rock star. And she's coming to South Carolina, so I was like, I am doing it. And I looked up the tickets, and I didn't do it. I was like, I have to be way up there in a giant amphitheater for $300 and something a ticket. That's not any drinks, hotels, nothing. I'm like, no, I love you, Stevie, but no, not doing that.
Yeah. Sometimes I joke. Sometimes I'm like, the most I will pay for tickets if like Prince and David Bowie and George Michael come down from heaven for one night only concert, I will pay whatever they are charging, and I don't care if my seat is way in the back. But yeah, it's because I think when I was younger I would have paid more because I'm like, oh, this will be amazing, and I don't care. And now I'm like, if I have to pay $300 to sit in the crappy seats, no.
No, not at all. But yeah. Please give me a free concert t-shirt, please. That really uncomfortable cotton, but we'd still wear it and then cut it up.
Yeah, because you had to get a concert t-shirt because everyone had to know that you went to the concert.
The t-shirt, a poster that got destroyed before you even got home, and sometimes the vinyl, because there was sometimes a really cool vinyl there or something like that. Now, my kids go to concerts and I'll give them credit. They go to more non-famous concerts, non-famous artists. They're just out there listening to all the stuff and gosh, when Bon Jovi toured, I thought that was the biggest show in the world with all the pyrotechnics and the cool stuff. That's kids play now. What these kids got, that's nothing. Well, what was or what is something that you could tell your Gen X self, your midlife woman today, version of you, that version in your 20s, if there was a piece of advice that you could give yourself?
Now give myself what if I could see myself at 20? Yeah. I would be like, stop taking everything so personally and serious, and just focus on making yourself happy. And if you don't have to stop people pleasing, because I was a big people pleaser and a perfectionist. I still sometimes am a perfectionist. Just let it go, because nobody cares as much as you do. So just take a chill pill so that you don't go into severe depression and anxiety because you're so just overwhelmed with trying to, be your best self, but you're not actually being your best self.
Right. What then, on the flip side, what's the biggest asset as a woman, a Gen X woman that grew up in that era? What's our biggest weapon or our best asset that we have in midlife that maybe other generations don't have, that maybe we could teach them?
I think because we grew up without the internet and social media, that, people joke like, no, but we did all these crazy things. There's no evidence of it. I mean, sometimes there is. We just have the pictures hidden or we've thrown them away or whatever. But we got to live our lives not under a constant microscope. I mean, yes, we had to deal with don't do drugs and don't do this, and if you do any of those things, it's all your fault. Which was we were always being threatened by the AIDS crisis, drugs, drinking, etc., of quicksand. But I would tell them, just put the phone down, walk away, go touch grass, so to say. Just forget about living your life online, because it's not real, and focus on finding stuff that brings you joy and makes you happy, because you don't want to get to 50 and go, what did I do in my 20s and 30s? Let me go back and look at my Instagram feed. That's not how you want to live your life.
Do you think, I'm just kind of mulling this over in my brain, do you think that because we didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phones, we had nothing, we had 2 cups on a string, that was about it, do you think that if we still did not have all the modern technology, or at that time, women at that time, our mothers that might be going through that period of time, do you think that the internet and all the information that we have now, while it is definitely a positive, is also a negative? in the way that we are dealing with this transition? Like, is ignorance bliss to a certain degree?
Sometimes, because it's so infuriating to see all the like wellness gurus that make people feel bad, or the the misinformation about health that's out there, and you're like, wait, so coffee is good, no, coffee is bad, this is good, this is bad, and then you don't know what you're doing, and you start to feel confused, and then you're just like, either you give up. And I think sometimes, yeah, it's, if you can maybe just actually read a book or go to the library, you're getting like one take as opposed to 25, and then trying to figure out who is the expert and knows what they're talking about, and who's just making stuff up because they want internet fame. And it's confusing.
It in the Japanese culture, I think in the Asian culture as a whole, but definitely Japanese, they did a study. They have maybe 15% of the menopause symptoms, or the severity of symptoms, than we in the Western or the West do. And that comes 100% from, they look at this stage of life as a rebirth and a celebration. And they don't dwell so much on the symptoms, and don't look at it in a negative light. They kind of look at it as like, well, if you're going to go from, being in a little cocoon to sprouting your wings, the sprouting your wings is going to hurt a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of time. But once they're sprouted, you're this beautiful butterfly. And I love that take on it. And I think a lot of it is, we have so much information and we compare ourselves to everybody else, that we somewhat lose what should be at least looked at as a positive transformation in our lives. That's me getting very sad and down right now. Wow, I really went there. I would rather talk about concerts.
Right. I love thinking about it that way, as opposed to, people are like, it's reverse puberty. They're calling it cougar puberty. And, it's like, which I can't quite figure out what that means, as in like, because we're feral and like ready to blow, or because
I have never figured that one out either.
Yeah, I'm not, that's not a term that I like, because cougar just has that negative connotation of like older women going after younger men. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that term is, I don't know, I just kind of find it ick. But yeah, I think if we did reframe how we thought about this, because it is like, once we get through this, like, it is freeing to like never have to buy tampons again or pads, or like, to not have to worry about the period every month. Like, yes, that bring all that. And like your brain, I watched the documentary, what was the M Factor?
The M Factor, yeah.
And talking about how our brains like get better, and how we start to, once we get through this, and I'm like,
yeah, there's so many changes that happen for the positive.
Yep.
Definitely getting rid of the damn tampons and things, though. And I don't know about you, but most women that I talk to, that whole thing, the period, when you're going through this, it's just like, today it's here, tomorrow it's not, it's light, it's heavy. Like, you don't even know. It came 3 weeks early. 4 weeks would be right on time. But if people, again, just give us some grace.
Right.
We have no idea what we're going through. And we're doing it like with the best smile that we can do it with. The most controlled, because again, like you said, if people knew that you were at a rage level of 11, or I was over there in the corner crying for hours over a lollipop or something I just saw on TV, they wouldn't be able to handle it.
No, I mean, we're like, in that corner, or like sitting there going, why am I feeling this way? Like, this is not how I want to feel. And you're trying to like have this conversation with yourself, like, just calm down. It's okay. Or it's like, okay to cry, but can we get past this? And so, yeah, it's like, we need other people in our lives to be like, oh, you're having a bad day. That's okay.
That's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
You can have a bad day.
We're all entitled to it.
Call me if you need me.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about your podcast, so that everybody gets a little taste of this.
So I've been a fan of podcasts for like the longest time. I think before everybody had one, I was listening to them. I just thought they were so interesting. And I started thinking, probably like in 2020, 21, I'm like, I think there needs to be podcasts for Gen X. We're always forgotten about. I mean, you always see on TV, like millennials, silent gen, boomers. I'm like, there's 15 years that you just left out. Do we just not exist? So, I mean, I know sometimes we like to be under the radar, but I wanted a place where we could come together and talk about different topics. So every month I do a different topic related to midlife. We've done ageism. We've done perimenopause, menopause. We're going to cover that again in October. I talked about growing up with siblings because I have them or without, and I mix a bit of nostalgia and fun because I know like we, I just love looking at 80s and talking about 80s and 90s, and so it's just fun to reminisce, but also talk about how we're dealing with the things in midlife that we weren't prepared for or didn't know we're going to, because adulting is, I like to rip up my contract because this is not what I signed up for. And so, yeah, I just want to give us a place to commiserate and complain. We're allowed to complain and just to have fun too, and think about midlife and how we're doing it differently. I hope that we're doing it differently than other generations.
I love that. Are you on all the streaming platforms?
Spotify, Apple, and this year we started, me, because I'm a one-woman show, I started YouTube. So if you want to watch it, you can watch it on
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I will put your podcast in the show notes so that everybody can find you and Wordwoman Creative. Because I have one question before we go. So you deal with beauty primarily. Helping them with their campaigns and things like that. Are they amping up on the menopause, perimenopause, mostly menopause? There
are some brands that focus on it. Then there are some brands that I'm like, where is your scientific data? Because I've come from the agency world. I worked on things like Coca-Cola. I worked on, pharma. So because of my pharma background, I'm like, I need the science because, I don't like when they try to tell us, aging is not cool if you're a woman, or this will cure whatever it is for menopause. And I'm like, can we stop shaming women for getting older? It's a part of life. Not everybody gets to do it. So I'm really big on like making sure that if we're going to talk about like we have the science, or, we're talking about this will make you feel better. It's not a magic cure because nothing is.
Right.
And making sure we're not making false claims or drug claims that you're not allowed to do, and spreading more misinformation because there's enough of it out there already.
I find that so refreshing because that's not what in the world of TikToks and this, that, and the other thing. It's the next new hype, and a lot of times with nothing to back it up. But we do it anyway because we got sucked into it. So it is very refreshing to see someone out there that is standing firm for the consumer. So I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you. I try.
Well, it has been so much fun. I mean, I could have talked with you about concerts, and then we could have gotten into clothes for hours and mixtapes. But I guess, people have lives to lead. Right. But they know where to find all that, though, in your podcast. And then to go to Wordwoman Creative to look you up on a professional level. Yes. And very excited. And Instagram, I'm sure we can put all that in there. But thank you so much, Blythe, for coming on and hanging out with me and talking all things menopause and 80s. I loved it.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it was such a fun conversation.
All right. Well, everybody go listen to Blythe's podcast. Get your fix on the 80s and all the problems we're going through right now because I'm tuning in. And thank you again for watching.